Hi, everyone. Giggling away. Welcome to another episode, another Better Nutrition expert interview. It is my total privilege to do these. I am so excited about tonight's topic. So we're going to dive really quickly in, but just a little bit of the ground rules. First of all, if you are watching us live tonight, you have the amazing opportunity to win. One lucky person will win a 15-minute strategy call to figure out how to do all of this stuff with our guests. So make sure that you tell us your favorite vegetable if you are interested in being entered to win. And then the other thing is, if you are not watching us live, you can't win that, but you can get to know Jennifer. Her website is there. You can answer, hi, Vicky. You can answer we can answer any of the questions at any point. So feel free to ask your questions. We will get to them as we go throughout. I certainly want to get some pearls of wisdom from our guest as well. And just a reminder to tell us your favorite vegetable if you want to be entered to win that free 15-minute strategy call. So, gosh, I want to win. So my favorite vegetable is broccoli. We'll see who wins on that part. All right. So without further ado, I get to introduce Jennifer Hunt, a dietitian who is now in South Carolina. She's got a couple of young kids, and we were just talking about also the awesome North Carolina, although her husband was at Chapel Hill or worked with Chapel Hill. I won't hold that against her. But we are talking about something that she has lived and breathed. So I think that that's often you get the personal experience and the professional experience. So Jennifer, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And I always love to start off. I think actually I'm going to start us off by asking, what is your favorite vegetable?
I am so glad you asked. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So I think right now, I don't know, it could change, but I think right now it's probably beets. And maybe as we're probably entering this season, probably maybe something like asparagus. But yeah, those are some favorites.
So good. So, not everybody could answer that question. I have a favorite vegetable, and start down that path. And also, not everybody could say like, hey, I love asparagus. I'm going to make it tonight, and I'm going to get just rave reviews from everybody, my partner and my kids and everybody else that's sitting at the table. But we know they're so good for us. So tell us how you sort of have gone down the path to becoming what I would refer to as an amazing problem solver in the better nutrition space.
Yeah. So in this particular space, I got married pretty young and found that so I went into marriage knowing that my husband only liked canned green beans, but I did not realize how much that was going to affect our communication skills and our meal planning and meal prep. And so we actually got married pretty young and then went off to school to finish college and to finish our degrees. And I found several months into marriage that I was pretty frustrated, which was turning into some anger and even some like low-key resentment because of this fact that I was so excited about trying new things and testing out new recipes and ideas, and I'm kind of just exploring and having fun in my program, and found that I was feeling incredibly limited by my husband's personal preferences. And so while I wasn't totally naive in the sense that I knew what he did and did not prefer, I think I just did not realize how he related to foods and like his relationship with food and how that was really going to impact how we were communicating, and especially on that particular topic. So I found that was something that really has driven me to really study strategies and come up with creative ideas a lot by trial and error to see really how we can kind of work through that and really and so I'm excited to say that like now, more than a decade later, that we rarely have a conflict over food, but that has been a lot of learning and testing and conversations, some of them heated and some of them not, but a lot of learning in that way.
Yeah. And I like, gosh, my heart, like you're speaking my language. I mean, I think, and just even the canned part, I'm like so judgy. Like I was like, but I was living in Los Angeles for 15 years and I came home and I was like, what are you doing with a can of vegetables? And then I was like, let's unpack this. So I think one of the things that you talked about that I want to hone in on is really understanding your partner's relationship with food. So how do you and tonight we're talking, just to preface with Jennifer Hunt, dietitian, about really the partner side of things. She works with parents all the time to help them with their kids and help them with healthy eating. We can certainly dive into that. But I just find it so fascinating because, as you said, I think their resentment can set in, challenging your enthusiasm. If you're really enthusiastic, like some of us just feel like we should give up, so then maybe that actually has us eating less healthy. So let's figure out how to solve the adult problem, as a starting point. So how do you actually talk to what could work in talking to your partner about to explore their relationship with food?
Right. Well, the crux of one of memories that I specifically have is that I remember us sitting at the dinner table, and we were probably a couple months into marriage. And I remember I just asked him, could you please just try a bite? To me, that did not seem like a hard thing. Can you please try a bite? And he looked at me square in the eyes and he said, Jennifer, the thought of that makes me nauseous. And it was that moment when I realized, wow, I do not understand what it is like right now to be in his shoes. I do not comprehend what that is like. And so one of the things that I have found is that I have had to become much more empathetic. And we've had to take conversations away from the dinner table, because that is a time where there was more pressure and there's more of these, even if there's not any direct statements of pressure or could you please try something, there can be that perceived idea. So I realized I kind of had to just start asking more questions and just saying, wow, I don't understand that, but I would love to. Could you tell me a little bit more? Or if he tells me that there was something where he doesn't like something, oh, when do you remember last having that and what happened? And I realized that there were times when, my husband had to sit at the dinner table for hours and hours because he would not eat something. And I did not have those types of experiences in my childhood. And so I realized that there was a part of empathy that I really had to dig into and had to learn how to put myself in my husband's shoes, and this could be in any partner's shoes, just to kind of understand that a little bit more and start asking more questions. And that is in a total non-confrontational way. I remember maybe we were out on a walk and I would ask a question, or it would be a time when we were not really in a eating food. It tended to be a time when it would be easier to kind of take away, de-escalate any emotion, and any pressure feelings, and kind of just start asking more questions. For example, I found that there were a couple of foods that, one in particular, my husband detested onions. And I just remember he could find the onions in the marinara sauce, the little pieces of diced onion, he could find them, and that was unappealing to him. And so as I started asking more questions, I realized it wasn't a flavor thing, it was a texture thing. And then I started thinking, okay, so as I started problem solving here, I thought, if it's a texture thing, well, can I add onion powder? Sure. So I would do that. So then I was like, so what if I saute some onions and put them in a food processor with some broth? Would that be okay? And I pureed them up and then put that into a soup, because onion is in all kinds of recipes, And so I felt very limited by that. And so he eventually said, yeah, sure, try that. And then eventually one time I was like, what if I just grate it? And so I was able to grate it and saute that and kind of put it into a slow cooker recipe. So as I started asking more questions, I realized, I'm not as limited as I feel. But I just have to start digging into the reason behind that. And I can start understanding a little bit more, and then I can strategize a little bit better in how I might potentially incorporate that in. And then I would usually have a discussion with them. I'd be like, hey, so I'm thinking about trying this. What would you think about that? And sometimes he would take a week or so to get back with me. I wouldn't always get an automatic, I'm okay with that. But as we started having that dialogue more often, he started realizing we were partnering together in this. And so I wanted to create really good, healthy meals. And he certainly did, cared about his health as well. But he just had some aversions that were challenging for him. And so as we continued to kind of dialogue a little bit, and this was not like a conversation we were having every single day, but as we started dialoguing a little bit more, I started becoming a better sleuth of what exactly it was that was preventing him from wanting to try something, and he would get better at communicating back to me whether something would be a good option. So,
wow. I love it. There are two things that I want to unpack separately or pull them apart, because one, I think, is the whole notion of hiding something or trying it and not having the conversation. But the other one is actually how you ask questions. So a lot of us ask questions that, like I'm doing right now, that are actually leading the witness or that may belie like a personal belief. Like, it's so interesting to me that you are choosing canned vegetables. Would you be open to fresh? Well, that's like me saying, like, I think your canned vegetables suck and I'm going to, why wouldn't you want fresh? So how do you actually, is there wording, or I love how you were talking about, like, not at the dinner table, not at the moment of eating,
right,
but like actually the vernacular or the lexicon of asking those questions. What are some that have been successful for you?
Yeah. So I think the question, I think asking something along the lines of, can you tell me more about that, is very open-ended, and just allowing someone to share, because there may be an emotion that they're wanting to share. There may be an experience. Anything could come out of that. And just saying, I would love to hear more about you and what you want to tell me, is a very kind of open-ended saying, I care about this and I care about you. So can you tell me more about that? I think some other ways that I might have asked that would be, let's see here. I'm trying to think of some of the language that I would typically use.
While you're thinking of the questions, I'm going to welcome Amy and Vicki and Betty Ann, and just remind you, you have the chance to win tonight 15-minute strategy call. So to actually like go in straight specific, I already have the questions that I want to ask. So I told her that my favorite vegetable is broccoli, hoping that I can win this one. But if you tell us what your favorite vegetable is, you will be entered to win. We're giving away one of these strategy calls tonight. So
yeah. So I also remember there were times when I was wondering, like, do you recall when you last had something? Because sometimes I think that we can automatically just say, well, I don't like that. And so I would sometimes just kind of dig in a little bit further and like, tell me about the last time that you had that and what happened, or and kind of trying to ask a little bit more, to inquire and see if I could get any more information. Another thing that I also would find sometimes is that sometimes when I say the word like carrots, you might automatically think of roasted carrots, or I might automatically think of like carrots and hummus. And sometimes we actually say that we don't like something because we're thinking of it in a specific preparation. So I remember also asking questions about, like, do you remember how it was prepared? Because that can sometimes also give more information about whether someone liked that or didn't, how it was prepared, because maybe there is a different preparation. For example, my husband, if I said, do you like kale? He may automatically say, not so much. But one of the things that I identified was that he liked crunchy, salty things. And so I thought, I wonder if I made kale chips, if that would be something that he would actually like. So it was, so sometimes asking also about, like, do you recall how it was prepared? Just in a very open-ended way, because someone might have had a really bad experience with boiled Brussels sprouts when they were 5 or something. And that's the only way that they think of when they think of Brussels sprouts. So asking about that preparation is also, I think, really key in kind of, once again, problem solving and thinking, is there a different way that I could change the texture or change the flavor that might be a little bit more creative and more appealing as well?
I love it. So we're talking with Jennifer Hunt and we are strategizing. We're figuring out how to help you and your partner, especially around vegetables, but this could really apply to anything where you're wanting to incorporate it in and it's something that they don't want. We're going to get into in a little bit what if like they actually can't have something or there is something that doesn't work, and we'll talk about that part. But when Jennifer was talking a little bit ago, if you're just joining us, she was saying that one, asking questions not at the dinner table or at the moment that you've put your heart into working on something. It's we were talking about what kind of questions. But then I absolutely love this. You talked about actually bringing your partner in on ways that you can try incorporating that ingredient in. Perhaps, as you said, it was a texture issue or a flavor domination issue or any of those pieces. So, there's a lot of this, like, go and, like, hide the vegetable, right? Like, we're making cauliflower pizza and they'll never notice it's just the crust or that kind of a thing. So talk a little bit about the success of actually bringing someone in on, hey, I'm going to try out these different ways, and some of the ones that you have found have been more successful.
Right. Yeah. And so I would say that if I knew very early on that hiding was not an option, and I knew that it would actually create more conflict within our relationship than not. And so I knew that communication was absolutely necessary. And sometimes that even meant that I had to, we would talk about something and then I would wait a month or two before I would really get a response or like, yeah, let's try this out. And because he just needed to kind of sit on it and obviously he wasn't thinking about it every day, but eventually he kind of got back with me and was like, okay, I'm ready to do that, and I'm ready for that. And I think so part of that was also learning to be patient, and just kind of allowing the process to work itself out, I felt was very necessary. But yeah, I feel that the communication about this was absolutely necessary, in that it really made sure that we were on the same team. Because I think that sometimes what can happen is we can try to put our own personal health values on other people that we love because we care about them. And we might personally think that this is the quote best way to do it. And so, but sometimes when we're doing that, we're adding this element of pressure and then obviously kind of closing some doors when it comes to that communication. And that is not very helpful. So when I would say, hey, I'm going to be sitting down and doing meal planning this, tomorrow morning. And I'd love if you have any input to, share with me if there's something that you're really looking forward to having, or if there is a particular meal that you would like for me to put on that meal plan. And kind of just opening the door, because while I was typically the one who was doing that, I was really wanting to make sure that he knew that he was a part of this and that we are on the same team, so that we can more so partner up, rather than feel like we're kind of butting heads. With those differences of opinion or preferences. I also know, when food can so much be an enjoyable experience. And so we want, when we are sitting down at the dinner table or the breakfast table or whenever we're sitting down together, for it to be a really enjoyable place and a moment and have good quality conversation. And the goal is not to have, there to be tension or this feeling that he's not going to eat it. And I'm and I just went to all this trouble, and that is just not a pleasant experience. And we know that also can contribute, if we're having that stress and anxiety, that can contribute to cortisol and, digestive issues and all of these different things at the mealtime. And so we want to make sure that we are having, for the most part, really good meals that taste good and that we're enjoying, and that we're keeping that place, kind of making it sacred and making it a really good, special place to be.
Yeah, these days we have so few opportunities for that quality time too, that I feel like. So I always think it's worth, and this will be like, this is served up for your husband, so you can play this part of the clip. But like, just as a person, like I've learned as a result of that. So I'm curious, like what you've learned as a result. So you've obviously learned so much about communication, and that's playing out in how you help other people communicate and that whole piece. But just as on the culinary side, either as a chef or just, in what you've prepared, what have you learned that maybe was unexpected for you about, vegetables or something that you prepared as a result of this process that you've gone through with your husband?
Yeah. Actually, I've been surprised here and there. For example, actually, just the other day, my husband, I think it was just last night, my husband, dinner was pretty much ready. And, but I was gonna do a quick little sautéed apples. I still have a 1-year-old, and eating an apple is still a little bit challenging for us. So I was gonna quickly cook them in the pan with a little bit of coconut oil. And my husband started kind of just prepping the apples and chopping them up real quickly. And I realized he was going to the trouble to peel them. And I was like, we don't need to peel them. The peel is a good nutrient.
Yeah.
This is what I'm thinking in my head,
Yeah.
right? Like,
right.
we can, like, the girls don't care about the peel being off. We can just throw them into the pan. And he was going through the trouble, and, things are getting cold, but I'm trying to tend and keep the girls, chill. And what I realized is that he was doing it because he was intending to eat them as well. And I didn't think he was going to be eating them. So I wasn't going to make the effort to make them in a way that I thought he was going to eat them. But because I'm really glad I actually did not say anything.
Yeah.
I was thinking it, but I didn't say anything.
Right.
And then I realized, hey, he's here at the table and he's modeling for our girls eating some great healthy foods. And it was just because, and so I was so glad that I was just quiet and I did not say anything and I didn't complain because he was making that effort. And so recognizing when a spouse or partner or someone is just maybe making that effort and has really, it's happened many times like that before. When I honestly didn't think he was going to take a bite or he was going to eat that particular part of the meal, and he surprised me. And so I really think that once again, doing our best to, disseminate the pressure and just making yummy tasting meals. And sometimes we are incredibly surprised about what someone might actually think of eating along with us.
I love that. I love the A for effort. And I feel like that part is, we can all be better, at that part and not necessarily like have it exactly the way. And, they'll learn that apples can be eaten peeled or not peeled, and it'll be, totally fine for them on that part. So one of the most common, and we actually got like 2 or 3 comments about this. I always post what our topics are going to be, and people will say, I can't join you, but can you please ask? I got one that, she's low FODMAP and her husband is high fiber, right? And another one who says she has a daughter who's dairy free and another son who is gluten free. And it's that whole short order cook, or like we're like low FODMAP and high fiber, right? You can't think of anything more different. So what are some of the strategies for using the techniques that you've been talking about, but to strategize in places where it's not a question of trying to bring them along, but rather like these worlds are just different, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that, so once again, I think it always starts with a good conversation about, these are some of the things that I'm trying to do because I know that it feels good for my body, but I know that you're doing those things for your body because they feel good for you too. And so I acknowledge that and I celebrate that part. And then so a couple of just like really tactical strategies, I think like power bowls or Buddha bowls or whatever you want to call them, are really good, in terms of being able to kind of, hit several different, like kind of make it work for a variety of people. And because you can change up the flavor combination for practically, there could be hundreds of combinations. It's a really, I think, easy to kind of make work strategy. So like on meal prep day, you can prep a few different kinds of protein options, and you could roast up a few different vegetables that are a little more FODMAP friendly, and then you could roast up some other things that are a little more high fiber. And then maybe we have, some kind of, potatoes or grain or something like that, a healthy carbohydrate that you want to add into the bowl. And so one of the things that I think sometimes happens is when we think about like meal planning or meal prep, we sometimes think about just like these one meal, like we're making a certain stew or we're making a certain curry or we're making a certain whatever. And then if we know that someone else at the the family is not able to eat that, or that doesn't work for them, then it just feels like, well, now we can't eat that. So I think these Buddha bowls can work out really well. And then just throw on some kind of yummy sauce. Like it could be, you have some coconut aminos or some tamari or low sodium soy sauce, or you could have like some tahini or some pesto, or you could make a Tex-Mex, and we've got like, salsa. And for the person that is able to eat dairy, you could have, dairy on the table, like yogurt or cheese or whatever. And then the people that are not able to, maybe they're using avocado or something. So I do think that those are sometimes easy ways to kind of make it work for a variety of dietary styles, but still everyone to sit at the table and eat kind of sort of the same meal, and you not to be making like you said, like being the short order cook, and like this one wants a grilled cheese and this one's going to eat that, and this is, because that's not what we want. That's not, so this is an opportunity for us to model, to our kids and to all of our family members, and really be able to also then let them get as much or as little as they want of those different ingredients too. So that's an idea there.
Okay. Love it. So I got another one, and this is part dietitian, part therapy, but we'll keep going down the path and just acknowledging that part. I should always say, when we are giving advice here, we're giving generalized advice. So we're not giving specific advice. That's why I give you Jennifer's name and website. Go to her. Or if you tell us what veggie you want, what your favorite veggie is, you could be entered to win that 15-minute strategy call, which I'm telling you, broccoli. I'm so excited. But so someone wrote in and said that their husband eats meat. He doesn't eat good quality meat because he's very cost conscious, but he eats a lot of meat, and she's really upset about it because it's bad for him. And so in this instance, like she's saying, she'll sit and eat her broccoli and hemp seeds or tofu, whatever she's deciding to have. But there's a part of this that I think we touched on before about, when somebody eats something different, but here she's really upset because she's worried about his health. And so what would you say in that regard?
Yeah. Well, so maybe they've had some conversations already. I think that I think that when you are in a committed relationship, it's okay to tell someone about that you care and about some of your concerns. But then I think you have to kind of end it and let them know that that's out there. A couple of thoughts though would be, I wrote a post probably a year or two ago on this, and it was entitled Meat Less Meals. And so I remember being in this place where I was thinking, I'd really like for us to be eating a little bit more plant-based meals, at least a couple times a week. But I didn't feel like my husband was exactly, when I mentioned that, he wasn't exactly thrilled about that.
That's right.
And so I thought, okay, well, what are some different ways that I can go about this? So for example, on like taco night, I always do like half beans and half meat. And you could do this like with lentils and meat or, any of that. So it's this idea that there's still meat there, but there's less of it. And it's also, we're including some more plant-based proteins there. So that would be kind of like a little strategy there is like, if you were doing like stuffed bell peppers, it's the same idea. Maybe we could do some beans and along with some meats, because obviously cost is another part of that. And so that is obviously a concern. So sometimes when we're also doing a little bit less, we're able to get a little bit maybe better or leaner or higher quality of those protein options. So that would be a little way to maybe to try that. And kind of see how that goes.
I love it. I love it. And we'll also give a shout out. Betty Ann left us a note saying that she brings food to her family get-togethers because every meal is a pound of mashed potato and meat. And so she had no other veggies, right, besides the potatoes. So Betty Ann, we feel you, but that's actually a great strategy, right? Is bringing something along on that part. Okay. Totally. So I had another one. I'm telling you, us ladies, I think if there's one key takeaway there's several from what Jennifer has said. So I'll start off with that. But one key takeaway is that part of really having the conversations and then letting some of it go, et cetera. But we do understand how our food relationships and also our health concerns for the people that we love. So another, I'm assuming actually it's a woman by name, and what she wrote in, it said she's really frustrated because her husband eats really junky food, brings home fast food, and she's trying to teach the kids what are better, better foods for you. So that role modeling that you were talking about, what are some of the ways that, I think your example of, hey, it's important for me that it was amazing that my husband was role modeling eating the apples. But what are how do you boundary set in terms of, or is there boundary setting in terms of, with how you're raising the food education for your kids, which is so important, and if somebody is maybe eating what somebody else perceives to be a little bit junkier or is junkier more often?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I found, or that I would encourage her to think about would be, so asking him, like, for example, if she's doing meal planning or, on a certain day, maybe before she's going grocery shopping, to ask him and say, hey, I am trying to plan out what we're having this week. And I would love for you to give me some of the things that you would like to have, and start there, because it might be that he just wants to have some meals that are that he likes in that meal plan. And so once again, kind of opening that up to him and just asking, like, are there some things that you would like to have this week? Because then if he's given some of his input, she can still add on some extra veggies or whatever to those particular meals to make them balanced. But that's also kind of him taking a little bit of responsibility in what's going on. And so there's a little bit of buy-in in creating that meal plan. And she could also say, hey, I'm trying to, I know that I've been noticing, the kids, I'm wanting them to kind of be exposed to some more veggies. And so you probably noticed, but I've been trying to add a few more things in. But I want to make sure that the things that you like and that we make are in this meal plan too. And so I just want to make sure and kind of check in with you and see what would you like to have on Tuesday, or, and kind of start there and see if there is an opportunity to, once again, create a little bit of that dialogue so that we are kind of helping to create some, a meal plan that's kind of fitting for both. Because the thing about it is, it sounds like she's pretty smart and that she knows how to get in some of those extra veggies, because that's obviously one of the things that she's trying to do for her family. But it might be that just having that conversation with him would be helpful. One of the things that I started doing many years ago, because I was feeling really limited, I felt like we kind of were eating like the same meals over and over. Like there were only, 5 to 7 meals that we both actually liked and that kind of worked for us. Was I actually created this master meals list. And at first I almost felt like this was silly. I was like, I'm just writing down the same things that we eat every single week. But then as I kept thinking about it, I actually came up in the end, probably over the course of a day or two, with about 20 different meals that we both liked. And so when I was feeling really limited and like, I want to make all this new stuff over here, but he doesn't want to make, eat those things. And he just likes this stuff over here. And so I was feeling limited, but I started writing it down. I realized there were actually more things. I just didn't always think of them. I was like, oh yeah, a couple of months ago, we did make that recipe and that actually went over pretty well, And so I just kept this list going and I just call it my master meals list, but of all these meals, and I kept adding to them. And then the great thing about it is, even if some of the meals on there were not maybe what would be as maybe not as nutrient dense as I would like them to be, I can then go in and, say, hey, we're adding, a little extra fruit and veg to that thing. Or I'm going to find a new way to make this that's still absolutely delicious, but a little bit more, higher nutrients, lower saturated fat, that kind of thing, right? Like I can go in and then kind of edit and kind of make my little notes here of how I'm going to kind of rework that. And I found that to just be very helpful as I then would sit down each week to create that meal plan for the week. So
wow. So you're so motivated. I don't know how. Like you're like, I've got 2 kids, I've got all this stuff. But also as a dietitian, I feel like there's an extra layer of motivation. This is obviously where your passion is. So we've heard throughout the whole thing, like you're a meal planner, like this is meal planning. So are there any tools, or for people who may like just say that this isn't actually exciting or fun, but it feels more like something they should do? Any of the favorite tools that you have that you feel like, yeah, this will help you kind of make this either easier or more fun, or help you with budgeting, any of that stuff?
Right. So I have tried out a few different tools, whether they were like meal delivery services and a couple of meal planning services. One with Living Plate and another one I think was called Plate Joy. And I have found them to be helpful. What I still go back to is typically a piece of paper and a pen. And that is probably just what works for me. However, I have actually surveyed my community, and a lot of them would tell me that, or actually the majority of them told me that a piece of paper and pencil is just what seems to be work. And I think the reason is because it seems super duper simple. And it's literally, I can be anywhere. I can grab something and write down what my intentions are. I think though that sometimes we can make meal planning can just feel really dull and drab. And we think we're going to sit and be at the table for 30 minutes trying to work, figure out everybody's preferences and everything like that. So I actually have a handout, and I can link to it for you guys for a 5-minute healthy meal plan blueprint. And it literally just walks you through how to put together a meal plan in 5 minutes that actually works for your family. I will say that master meals list, if you just even start tonight and just start jotting down on a piece of paper some of the meals that you know that everyone in your family eats in some form or fashion. It doesn't have to be that they eat all of it, but they eat in some form or fashion, and just start jotting those down. I will say that is very helpful. But honestly, you can put together a meal plan in 5 minutes or less every single week that actually works for your family. And I'll give you that link to the handout.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude selfishly with one because, I find, and there could be this is the privilege of doing the interviews, but so I love that. First of all, we definitely want that, how to do the meal planning in 5 minutes. So one of the things I found, and it can fall a little bit more along gender lines, although there are men out there that are so creative and involved, in all of those pieces. So my boyfriend could literally eat the same thing every day of his life. Like that's great for him. And he's like, and I will say, kudos, we've evolved to like salmon and broccoli. And he's like, that's great. We're going to do salmon and broccoli. My problem is that if I do salmon and broccoli again, I'm like, ooh, did anyone happen to buy some ice cream? Or, is there anything, that kind of thing. And so in that space, like, is there a way to sort of turn around and say, like, I understand that you're actually good with having the same thing all the time, but like, I'm not? Like, for me, is it spice up my salmon and broccoli, or try to make it, you know what I mean? Like, where you're just trying to say, I want to eat together. Because what we end up defaulting to, which I don't love, is actually getting food, like saying, let's just go out so we can order. And I think both of us, budgeting and health-wise, would rather, be eating at home. So personal help, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying that he's eating some of these great choices, but you feel like it's happening all of the time and there's not as much variety.
The only great choice, like he's like, I could have salmon and broccoli, or I would do steak and broccoli, and I don't eat steak. So then I'm like broccoli and hemp seeds, or, it would be chicken and broccoli. And I'm like, that's great. So I'm going to have broccoli and hemp seeds. Or for me, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just go make something. I mean, a lot of us too, and this is more dating, or I have encountered this actually with a lot of my patients who are empty nesters, where they turn around and said, like, we realize we actually don't eat the same thing. So we're just making two different meals. And I'm just trying to find that way to kind of bring it together for the reasons you said. This is our date time, right? So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and I think, and you just mentioned that you used the word date time. And I think that is a really fun way to kind of look at it, and maybe not every single night,
right?
But because we may not have the time to do that every single night, but like when you're carving out that time and like, this is our date time, it can be a fun thing to like go find a new recipe to try. I do think, and I've actually done this with my husband, but where we would do like one of the meal kit delivery services, whether it was, think we did Sunbasket, and we've done several. And I had him help me choose which of the recipes we are going to try out, because I wanted to make sure, once again, I had some of his buy-in and that he was on board with that. But I think that can be so fun. Usually they're delivering like 3, meals, and you probably tried some of these before, but I think that's a really fun to kind of mix it up. Even if it's just like, once a month or something like that, just to add something fresh, because there have been several times when I thought, oh, I can just recreate this like this, because they give you the recipes. And so if it's a winner and everyone, likes it, then you've already got the recipe right in front of you, and you can go buy the ingredients if you want to at the grocery store. So I think that's a really fun way to add a little bit of variety, and sometimes it adds in some, ethnic cuisine and something a little bit different. Another thing I've done, I did a Eat More Veggies challenge about a month ago with my community, and I literally just created this list. It was like this color-coded list of veggies, and it was nothing special except that I think that every person that saw that handout, they're like, oh my gosh, I just did not realize how many vegetables were out there.
Right.
And because we go into the grocery store and sometimes we're on autopilot. We know what we typically get and we're grabbing. And so maybe, at the farmer's market, we're seeing a lot more variety, and certainly probably be doing that a lot more into the summer months. But I do think that sometimes we just don't realize what all is out there. And sometimes just seeing a list and saying, hey, we haven't tried this before, or what do you guys think? Or can be a really a fun thing, or literally going to your farmer's market and saying, hey, hun, pick out something and we're going to go home.
We're going to do something. Yeah,
and we're going to do something. Yeah. And have fun with that.
Totally. It's so, and it's one of those things, it was like the other day, it was like eggs, and it's like, what are the green things in the egg? And I was like, oh, just a little chive. I just hadn't thought, it's like, okay. So anyway, this is, thank you so much. So yes, please, on the link, so that we can share that with other people.
Sure.
And you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube and you like what you saw, please give us a thumbs up, but also much more importantly, whether Facebook or on YouTube, we are trying to help everyone enjoy more meals together and role model better meals. So please share this with your communities, with your friends, even people that maybe in the school community, so that we can help with some of these great tips. As you were saying it reminded me, we actually, the practitioner that helped us create the rainbow evaluation, which is one of our Better Nutrition tools, she created because she literally led a challenge on getting in a rainbow. And she was like, I wanted to remind people that, orange can be turmeric. Like it could be your turmeric latte. Yeah. You don't have to have sweet potato or, any of these. So just a reminder that we have that tool, and that could be a fun one for people if they want to, engage and do a contest like that. So Jennifer, thank you so much. And we had about 5 people. Amy Viscar is our end of winter. I'm here in Maine, so everything feels like winter to me. Amy is our winner. So Amy, if you want to send us a direct message with your email, you've won a 15-minute strategy call with Jennifer. So thank you so much, everyone. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. And Jennifer, thank you so much. This has just been awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. And thank you guys so much.
Great.